Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lisa, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act announcement, please?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakes Town Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Leybow? Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Mania?
Here. We have 3 items for discussion this evening. The first is the Become Awesome Foundation. Dr. Novaki, would you please?
I'm Denise D'Amico Novaki. I live at 432nd Street in Bud Lake. I'm the chairperson for the Become Awesome Foundation, and I'm here to give an update on the Garden of Memory that the Become Awesome Foundation is sponsoring with the help of the township. You'll see in your packets that I gave each of you a polished garden stone that's carved with a saying on one side and with Become Awesome on the other side. I am carving garden stones for every person under the age of 30 who never reached their 30th birthday and who lived in Mount Olive and passed away before reaching their 30th birthday. So, I wanted to give you a sample. Now, of course, the stones that I'm doing for each person doesn't look like that. It has the person's name on one side and their life dates, birth and death dates on the other side. But I wanted to give you a sample of what they look like. So, as you might remember, when I last tuned in here, Nick's friends, my son's friends, wanted to make the garden a place where all the youth of Mount Olive who passed away early can be celebrated. So I started to research these names. And as I started to research the names, I realized that I can research names from the founding families. And I did that. So I went all the way back to the 18th century with names. And as I was doing that, I read some original work by Enos Goebel Budd, which was fascinating. I can't believe that he gave such a speech at his family reunion, which is what the work was, right? These people must have been bored out of their minds. But he left a document, a book, that lists all the Budds and who they married, what they did, who was the senator. It's fascinating, right? So I did all that. I learned about Budds during the Civil War. I learned about Colonel Budd, who fought under George Washington in the Revolutionary War. I learned all kinds of things. In the beginning of that document, Enos Budd makes the point, this is from 1881, he makes the point that the Budds were like Adam and Eve. And as I read that, I was like, is this man narcissistic or what? Until I started doing the family tree. He was right. These people are all over the place. When the Budds came here, some Budds settled here, some settled on the eastern part of the state, but others went to South Carolina. Some went to Burlington, New Jersey, and from there, some went to South Carolina. So that during the Civil War, it was brother against brother, right? And we have that right here. So I documented all this, and I started to put together family trees. And I started to see of our founding families, There's some children, of course, who were lost. Not as many as you think, but some. It wasn't car accidents in 1880. There was a breakout of cholera in 1880. So I learned all kinds of things. You may or may not know that graduates from Mount Olive High School, going back to before my time of 1976, we are all getting together via Facebook, and I'm being fed names. Don't forget my sister, don't forget my brother. Denise, do you need any help? Do you need any help researching? I can weed. So there are people in our town and in New Jersey helping with the garden. There are graduates from Mount Olive High School in Florida, Missouri, Indiana, helping me, doing research, giving me names. Don't forget this person. This person was older than 30. So that's what's been happening. I'm carving a lot of names. My family's ready to throw me out because the Dremel is loud. But carve I will. John Geiger, who works under Frank Wilpert, has helped me an incredible amount getting an infrastructure for the garden. So we got that going. In the fall, myself, Todd, and some volunteers planted upwards of 100 bulbs. They are coming up now, slowly, because it's cold up there. I am doing research about getting a rain barrel so that we can have some irrigation up there. And rain barrels aren't as complicated as you might think, but I got to put some money together for that and for a sign, which brings me to my next item. In the beginning of June sometime, or sometime over the summer, but I'd like it to begin the beginning of June, I'd like to have a Garden of Memory opening as a fundraiser. And at that, I hope to tell some stories about the founding families, maybe have some vignettes acted out. The drama teachers at the high school are willing to help me with that, and they're very excited about that opportunity. So I'm coming before you because I need permission for that. I just don't want to do it, right? I need permission for that to go forward. What else do I want to tell you? Oh, to get benches at the garden. Paul Fortunato, who lives over in Flanders, used to be a police officer, is retired, but told me that, I've known this man forever, we raised our kids together. He told me that he used to be a mason. Who knew, right? So we're gonna pour some concrete and make some low-cost benches. That's up and coming. And finally, there is a companion book that I'm writing because I don't have anything else to do. There's a companion book being written about some of the founding families, particularly the Budds and the Swayzes, not my mother-in-law, Hardens, Ogdens, Batsons, what they did, who they were, how they made their living, what were their trials and tribulations, as well as a listing of more current people that are celebrated in the garden. And that book is called Take My Voice, and the premise being that the people who lived, particularly those before us, but also my son and other people's children, left a legacy. And if no one advertises what the legacy is, no one's gonna know, right? I went through, my husband and I went through the school district. I never knew there was a Colonel Budd, no less that he fought under George Washington, or that Daniel Budd fought in the Civil War, or that many Budds were senators and hung out with the Frelinghuysen family. Who knew? Right? So it's not only Nick's legacy, which is substantial, that I want to tell people about, but through the garden, I've made friends with other people in town who recently lost their children and learned about those children and what they offered. And together, we're giving each other support. Do you have any questions?
Just a couple of comments, if I may. One, I was employed by the Budd family, Budd Moving Systems, and I could remember where they had reunions of up to 300 Budds coming to Mount Olive for a reunion.
That's where he gave his speech. Can you imagine that? Yeah.
Was that back in the 1800s?
1700s.
They met at the Forest
That's
Manor
when
or
New York was a
something.
prairie.
Before the plague.
So at our opening, Mr. Frelinghuysen may pay us a visit, and I intend to invite the Budds from Budd Moving. So we'll see.
The other thing, Denise, if you let me know how much concrete you need, I may be able to help you.
Great,
Okay?
great, great,
You can
great.
send me an email, whatever.
How soon are you looking for the rain barrel system? Is that this summer or?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna need it this summer because until the rain barrels are in, I'm toting water up there.
Okay, all
Right? So John Geiger and I need to figure something out
right. Yeah,
with
we
that.
can pledge whatever help you need from our public buildings grounds you receive. I mentioned, written to the mayor just now, there's a possibility of a Sustainable Jersey grant. They love these type of projects, but the way the grant cycle goes, they would award it this year and we wouldn't be able to put it until next year. So maybe it's a longer term thing.
Okay.
To look into, but this is the exact type of project that they love awarding down in Atlantic City, usually in November. So I can look into that.
Great, that would be wonderful, thank you. Anything else?
Mayor?
Yeah, I was going to say that I applaud your effort, but really I think the correct sentiment is that I'm happy to be part of your effort.
Thank you.
And whatever I can do to help, please count me in.
Thank you very much. I speak on behalf of mothers and fathers, but it's the mothers that, you know, I hang out with, of the children in Mount Olive who have recently lost their lives. These people are suffering more than I thought, right? You know, I know the suffering, but they're suffering a lot. So the garden gives them something to do and brings meaning to the life of their children and my child. Okay? Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your support as always.
No,
Thank you for the gift.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. After Dremel, we're proud.
Pet rocks every time. Oh, he was kind of a box. We got Lisa.
The next discussion matter is the Land Conservancy presentation. Would you kindly step up to the mic?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. By way of introduction is Barbara Heskins Davis. She has worked with us for a lot of years with the Land Conservancy in Mount Olive. It's been a great partnership. I happen to have those notes from the trails, by the way. I have them scanned and I'll have them down to you. But we're very pleased to work with them again this year. They've been integral with the improvements in the trails, especially the White Trail. We've recently identified the Orange Trail moving up. Everybody's aware of the community garden and what a huge success that is. So without further ado, I will
Thank you,
turn it over to
Sean.
Barbara.
So my name's Barbara Heskins Davis. I'm Vice President of Programs at the Land Conservancy of New Jersey. I want to thank you for having us here tonight. And just so, I guess as a way of making connections, I gave, it was Denise that was here first, the woman?
Yep.
Yeah, I gave her my business card with 2 names on it for rain barrel connections. The Water Supply Authority was going to provide a rain barrel for our community garden, but we don't have the right setup for a rain barrel. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to help Denise out and bring that to her at her garden. I'm here tonight because I asked Sean and the mayor if I could come to provide an update to the council about what the Land Conservancy is doing out at South Branch Preserve. I was here about a year ago and it made a tremendous difference for me to come in our work to speak to the council because some of the challenges that we were having in putting in the infrastructure for the garden were immediately resolved after I came to the council and spoke to you. So it was huge, and we're not having any challenges this year, so I thought it would be nice to come to the council to tell you what's going on and what's working and what you can anticipate. And I thought as part of that, I would provide a packet to you that had some general information about the preserve in it. On the left in your packet are 3 flyers about the community garden, and I included that so that you could see the type of material that we're producing and that we're providing to your residents about the garden. The sheet on top is our Earth Day celebration. We had it on April 22nd, and it was attended by members of the garden and residents. We gave out seedlings for Arbor Day, and it was really a nice event, and it didn't rain too hard, which was even a bonus because it was raining that afternoon. The second sheet is information about the garden itself. If you recall from last year, I told you we were cheap but tasteful. Our fees are the lowest anywhere for a community garden. They're $30 if you're a resident of Mount Olive, and a $30 one-time fee. For water irrigation, if you're not a resident or a member of the Land Conservancy, it's $40. And we did not raise our rates. We felt very strongly that we want to keep this affordable. And what I'm very excited about is that when I came here last year, I talked about the community garden. We were at 69 plots. When I left last year, I decided, in consultation with our staff at the Land Conservancy, that the time to expand the garden was immediate. That we had originally planned 69 plots at the garden with room to expand to double that size. What we found that was when we announced the opening of the garden last year, within 3 weeks we were fully subscribed. And that's exciting, and it also gave us the confidence that this was something that was really needed in Mount Olive. And you know that probably better than I do, because as a council you had been looking for sites for a community garden. Well, I'm very pleased to let you know that we're at 145 plots, and as of May 1st, we only had 13 left. So it's really fabulous. The garden just opened, and really it's been too cold, too wet to even plant. So we should be fully subscribed, I would say, by Memorial Day, which is very exciting. The last sheet is we partnered with the Master Gardeners Program, and we had a series of educational programs. We also partnered with School Lunch Farm, which is a farm in Mount Olive Township, for a seedling sale that was over the weekend, and it was very successful. We really want to partner with local initiatives within Mount Olive Township to support all of these type of green communities within your municipality. So we had a very active program. The public library was a great location for us to have these programs, and we're very appreciative of that. On the right side of your packet is an aerial photograph. You can't tell anyone that I gave it to you. You have to disavow all knowledge. My job is somewhat dependent on it, but I was too excited not to include it. The aerial photograph that has no writing on it at all was flown yesterday. We were able to partner with Lightning Hawk. It's a group of pilots that will donate their time, their plane, and their services for nonprofit organizations that are involved with conservation. And we found out about it last year at the National Land Trust Rally out in New Orleans. And we've been working with them all winter, and they agreed to fly with 2 members of our staff over our preserves. And this is a photograph of South Branch Preserve yesterday. So you can see that the garden, some of the plots have been tilled, and the farm fields have been tilled as well. The map behind it is a map of the entire South Branch Preserve, the north section. What I did on that map was really the basis for the conversation tonight. I wanted to talk about what it is that we're doing this year and what our plans are, so that if you have questions for me, I can answer them this evening, so that you can be ambassadors for our preserve as well. So the Land Conservancy, we own 405 acres in Mount Olive Township. 208 acres are located at the north section at Bud Lake, and the remaining land is owned off of Shop Lane, and that's called the south section. The south section is a restoration site. We purchased this property in 2010, and we've slowly been adding land to it. This was a property that had been partially developed for 16 homes. In 2010, we had removed all of the infrastructure and replanted, and I'm very pleased to let you know that it's very successful. So if you have a chance to walk down to Shop Lane and take a look on the preserve, the native species are growing up. The wildflowers are crazy, outrageous, beautiful. We put in a series of vernal pools, and they're acting as they should. The site is stable, which is the whole goal, so soil is not moving off the site. When we have a severe rain event, I no longer stay up worrying at night that the neighbors are going to have soil in their backyard. That's completely resolved, and the site is really breathtaking. We're in the final year on that site of a 3-year grant cycle with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. The grant funded the soil stabilization work, replanting of some native species, and management of non-native species. So we've removed an acre of barberry, which has allowed the native species to regrow. We actually did some tree management, some forest management for habitat enhancement, and we replanted about 450 evergreen trees on the site, which are all coming up. So we're very pleased.
What's your plan for that site ultimately in terms of benefiting the residents of Mount Olive through passive recreation?
Right. Great question, so thank you for asking it. This site is a restoration site, so its only access is pedestrian access. And we finally received, took 3 times, a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection to put in a trail. So it was just under $10,000. We're going to put in a trail on the south section and a trail on the north section. There are plans to connect the two when we finally preserve the land in between. The grant funds a kiosk, wayside stations, and the trail markers. So that's going to be going in this summer.
Last time I was there, the gate was locked.
Right.
To actually access the site. Is that now open?
It's open, yeah. The
Okay.
gate was locked because we had damage from the storms and the fence wasn't safe. So we didn't want people walking their dogs on the property until we had repaired the fencing.
Okay, at some point, you're gonna need to let us know that the site is ready for
Oh, sure.
advertisement in terms of passive
Yeah.
recreation use, so that we can let people know in Mount Olive that the trail is ready to be used, and the site is, I know it's a beautiful site, because I've actually walked it
Nice.
in the past, so
Good.
you have to let us know when you think the time is appropriate.
Good. Yeah, I wrote it down so I won't forget. That's a
Okay.
great suggestion. So the north section is the property on the corner of Wolf Road and Route 46. And last year, we worked with the municipality to allow the police department to improve the sight distance on Route 46 East, heading onto Wolf Road. It's a site where there had been a number of accidents, and the police department contacted us to remove soil from the site to smooth out the curve so that there was a safer sight distance. The Land Conservancy co-owns this property with the New Jersey Water Supply Authority, and there are deed restrictions on the property with the Morris County Municipal Utility Authority and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And I was very pleased that all of the agencies agreed to the work quickly, because there was a very small window of opportunity for the police department to do this work. So it's nice when government entities can, all step up and do the right thing in a quick amount of time. And I was also very proud of our board, because our board responded immediately and affirmatively to that work. So that has been done. The sight distance has been improved, and that's a good thing.
I have to tell you that it's a major improvement, and I don't recall a major accident on that intersection since that improvement's been done.
Good,
So we
good.
do really appreciate the fact that you guys and all of the other agencies have worked with Mount Olive Township.
Good. We are very pleased. Don't want anyone hurt. The property has 8 agricultural fields, actually 12. So there's 12 agricultural fields. 4 of the fields are at the south branch of the Raritan River. 3/4 of a mile of the south branch of the Raritan River runs through this property. Those 4 fields are also where the community garden is a small part of. Those 4 fields, we have a grant from the United States Forest Service to put in a native forest restoration site. So last year, we planted 1,740 trees and shrubs on the first of the 4 fields. Over the winter, Mount Olive Township had 70 inches of snow that didn't melt from December to March. At the end of March, when the snow finally melted, we went out on the site to see how the property had fared over the winter months. And we were really dismayed to see that we had 70% die-off of those trees and shrubs. And the reason we had 70% die-off was because the snowpack was so deep and it was so cold over the winter, the rodents, the voles, actually didn't have enough food, and there was an explosion in the population of voles. And normally there would be predators that would get the voles, and they would eat some but not all. But because of the deer exclosure fence, no predators could get into the restoration area on the north section, and the voles actually ate the bark surrounding the trees, which kills the trees. So this year, we are in the second phase of the replanting, where we've purchased $40,000 worth of trees and shrubs, and we're going to be spending close to $20,000 to plant them, and that's going to be happening this week or early next week. It completes our grant with the Forest Service. So what we're doing is we are actually going to be using volunteers and our interns to tape all of the trees. We're planting 4,500 trees and shrubs, about a third of that is trees. The tape should prevent the voles from eating the trees. It's a very unusual circumstance for this to happen. We knew there would be some die-off, we anticipated that, but conditions were such that we really had kind of the worst case scenario. So what we're doing now is there is some funding left that I believe we're going to be able to reallocate within that grant, because I want to replant the first field. So what we're going to do, it's a 3-year grant. The grant expires in July of 2015. We're in the second of the 3 years. We're going to plant the other 3 fields this spring. We're going to wait out the winter to see how everything goes. We're investing extra money for watering this spring and summer to make sure the plants are well cared for. And then next spring, we're going to order, with the balance of our funds, the remaining trees and shrubs and set aside money for labor to replant that first field. We contacted a number of foresters who have done this scale of a restoration effort, and the planting schematic is really designed that the native species will naturally repopulate, and that absolutely is happening, which we're pleased about. So we're hoping that the mixture of the natives naturally repopulating and then our assistance with the new trees will then allow the forest to regrow in that site, which is going to benefit the water quality of the South Branch and the Raritan River, which is the whole purpose for this project. The remaining 8 fields, 4 of them straddle Route 46 and Smithtown Road, and the other 4 are across from the community garden on Wolf Road. We received a grant from the Natural Resource Conservation Service 2 years ago, I guess a year ago, to begin to transition to organic farming. So all the corn was plowed under, we tilled all the fields, and we replanted with native clover and oats. We have now an agreement with a local farmer. He is in the process of tilling all 8 fields, and he's going to be planting with native oats only and using non-chemical means. Again, the purpose is for the water quality. We're really pleased. We interviewed probably a dozen different farmers. It's not easy to find someone who's going to be willing to farm a property organically without the use of any chemicals or pesticides, and to make sure that it's of a product that's going to restore the nutritive value of the soil, which the oats will. So we're very pleased. It's a kind of a handshake 1-year agreement. In return, he's going to be doing mowing of the trails that we're going to be putting in and helping us to maintain the property, which is great. So he's already started. The oats should be planted either the end of this week or early next week. So you can see on the aerial photograph that I gave you, we didn't even realize the fields had already been tilled until it was flown yesterday, and you can see his equipment in the field. So I'm really pleased. In addition, I'm excited to let you know that we formed a partnership with the University of Vermont for an intern for the summer, and we've hired Rachel Smith She is a resident of Mount Olive. She's a recent graduate of the high school. She's finishing for freshman year at UVM, and she's going to start on Monday. So I'm sure you're going to meet her, and her role is to have the community really engaged in the garden. So she was a member of the Key Club, the environmental club at the high school. So we want her to go to the high school, meet with some of the students, get some more of the local educational resources that you have in Mount Olive involved with the community garden. I'd like to see her meet with some of our volunteer groups in the municipality to let them know about the garden and see what we can do to bring some of our resources to the municipality. She's also going to be working with our gardeners on the donative component of the garden. What our ultimate goal for this property is to improve and enhance the water quality of the South Branch of the Raritan River, and to use the natural resources within this site in terms of its ag fields to benefit the community. So that's one of the reasons that the agreement with this farmer is only for 1 year, because our ultimate goal for the farmland within that property is that it be used to support people in need, so that food would be grown and that a portion of which would be donated to the local pantries. And the members of the community garden have really embraced that concept. And last year, in our first year, several of them on their own donated their excess produce to local food banks. And we have a local church, the Drakestown Methodist Church, that has a plot in the garden. We have several people who have donated their own services and their money to purchase 6 plots, all of which the proceeds will be gone for the local food pantries. And we've met with the Interfaith Food Pantry, and they're receptive to it, and they actually have some infrastructure in terms of transportation to help us bring the produce from the garden to the food pantry without any delay. So we're very pleased. In terms of the development of the farm fields, you will begin to see, we've already applied, I think, for the permit for the fence. We're going to be putting up a deer exclosure fence. We've had several meetings with JCP&L or First Energy because there's a power line that goes through the property. We want to make sure the fence is erected safely and provides adequate access for First Energy to maintain their lines. So we've been having an ongoing dialogue with them, and they're supportive of what we're doing. And we're doing this with a grant from the Walmart Foundation, which is great. So we are applying for grant funding. Eventually we need to put in water. For those, we can't grow any type of produce, vegetables without water. And after our experience with the garden, I'm much more conversant on what it takes to put in a well and electricity and the expense thereof. So we've applied for grant funding for that, and we need to put in a kind of a larger size shed for the equipment. So that will all be coming down the road. I'll be, working with Sean to make sure that you're informed ahead of time as to what we're doing, so there aren't any surprises. And that's really a goal for us. And we're very excited that Mount Olive is working with us to install really just a beautiful sign on the property that's going in May 21st. It's going to be on Wolf Road, and very simple. It announces that it's South Branch Preserve, and then there's small signs underneath that have our name on it and the New Jersey Water Supply Authority. And we really couldn't put in the sign without the assistance of Mount Olive, so we're really excited about it, and we're looking forward to the sign going in. And with that, I'm really happy to answer questions. I appreciate your patience. I know I probably rattled on just a bit, but we're very excited about it. We appreciate Mount Olive's support, and we look forward to future partnership opportunities.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Councilor, I reiterated before, just they're a pleasure to work with. Barbara's great to work with. We often, a lot of times behind the scenes, do a lot of emails and conversing, and they're a big help, and more ways than I think we realize how much they help not just our preservation efforts, but the community garden as well as the trails. We have some big plans, and I want to thank Barbara for coming out today, because they're a tremendous partner, at least for me and some of the other members in the day-to-day workforce.
I'd
Anyone
encourage
else?
Mount Olive Township to get involved with National Trails Day. I'll send you the information tomorrow. It's on June 7th, and it'd be a great goal in terms of opening your trail system.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Yes, thank you.
Barbara, thank you for the presentation. It certainly was very informative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Okay, next discussion matter is the plan for the vault on Flanders Road.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just to update council, as we are all aware, we spoke about this extensively 2 years ago. At the time, the plan was to buttress the current vault doors. They've been installed in 2011, and at the time, the plan was to put that interconnect in Flanders Road for a myriad of reasons, some of which had to do with DEP regulations, Highlands and the like. The local resident, Mr. Rutledge, had come in. We had heard his concerns, and for the short term had come up with a possible engineered solution, which did work for a time. The problem is the rubber grommets or whatever padding is, for lack of a better term, between those doors, they wear down over time and the noise comes back inevitably. Currently, that concern has been brought to Mr. Quinn, who then related to myself. Myself and the mayor spoke of this. I've directed Gene Buzinski and Timmy Quinn, our engineer and DPW director, to revisit the plan that they had 2 years ago, which was our contingency. If council will recall, in summer of 2012, we agreed that we would try the short-term plan. If it failed, we were going to move ahead with the long-term permanent vault. So what we will be coming to council, and I've directed Gene to revisit those plans, update them, and provide me a copy, is to create another vault, not the entire vault, but a vault cover, and to have an oversized manhole cover over that. Something that will alleviate the trap doors we currently have, which has become a disturbance to the local resident. I'm also going to ask him to revisit the possibility of getting this off the road entirely into the resident's yard. I'm not optimistic about that due to past Highlands problems, but maybe things have changed. There's been a change in Highlands. There's been a change somewhat in the atmosphere, so I'm going to ask him to revisit that as well. So what council will be seeing in the coming, hopefully, weeks and months is a formal plan revisiting that vault as our primary goal and solution, with the possibility of moving that vault completely off the road, which would be much more desirable from my perspective. I'm not sure if it's attainable or not, but we're on it. We've had conversations with Mr. Rutledge, the local resident, and we're hoping to give a permanent fix.
Mr. Canning, do we have any idea what the cost would be?
Approximately about 110,000 thereabout, a little more, a little less.
110,000.
Yeah, we'll be able to build that.
Do we have any recourse for what was put in there?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. That was before this current administration had come in.
I mean, obviously, the wrong thing was put in there.
Yeah, again, we're getting into a legal matter. I would look to the mayor and Mr. Pasek for some guidance on that. I'm not sure if we have any malpractice or what have you. I'm just not well versed in that area, so it's something we have to look into.
Alex?
What's the time frame?
I would imagine, I would hope to break ground before September, just because of school concerns and the busing and the like. I can't say for sure because you never know when you got the county road opening permits, you have Highlands, you have DEP, there's all sorts of issues here. So you know what, in August would be a overly optimistic and aggressive time frame, so I don't know at this time.
In the meantime, is there anything that we can do temporarily to mitigate the noise? Because it seems like it got worse in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, what happened was they examined it. There was a latch that busted from snow plowing, so you're running on 3 grommets rather than 4, hence the excessive noise. They're going to repair those things. Again, it's going to be fixed. It's going to make it better for the time being. Inevitably, it's going to wear down, and you're going to have this noise again. But hopefully, we can buy some weeks and months with the.
We're very fortunate Mr. Rutledge is not a pushy guy.
He's been a true
He's been
gentleman
very,
through the entire
very
process.
patient. Mr. Amianda?
What is the location of the vault on Flanders?
It's right in front of 25 Flanders Road. It's right between Pershing Estates entrance and Turkey Brook Park. If you go down Flanders Road, there's 2 big silver doors right in the, that'd be the westbound lane heading towards Route 46, going down Flanders Road.
Near Sunset.
Yeah,
Right
near
at Sunset.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sean, same offer as 2 years ago. If you need any assistance, let me know.
Yeah, thank you. You were a tremendous help then, and I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're up to resolutions. The first one has been removed, authorizing the award of a contract for sports field lighting. So we have 8 resolutions. Any discussion?
That resolution will be on for the next meeting, May 20th.
Was it just a timing issue, or was
Yeah.
there a timing issue?
The bond ordinance has to be into place.
Right. So we kind of jumped the gun in terms of putting it on the agenda.
Mr. Canning?
I just wanted to comment on a resolution selling the garbage trucks to Cinnaminson Township. We were pretty happy about that because it's, you know, there's no guarantee we get more than that at auction. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. But it was just a good example of, you know, Mr. Quinn going to a DPW director's networking event. It was one of those, you know, the public association conferences that he has. Made a good contact with another township who was looking to supplement their own garbage fleet. So it proves the value of networking from peer to peer among the disciplines in the township here. And, you know, in return, we end up getting very good value for you know, it's a solid truck, but it's, you know, it's getting long in tooth.
Where did you advertise for that sale?
We didn't have to. This was
didn't?
just a networking event from the DPW directors, and, you know, just like all disciplines within the township.
Wonderful.
I talked to administrators, well, directors talked to directors, and they found that we had some excess garbage trucks.
If,
Mr. Perkins?
He's always
I'm
done
sorry.
if we could, when we make the delivery of the truck, if they can make a request of have a picture taken so that we can advertise and show the residents,
Yes.
you know, what we're doing with our excess equipment.
Absolutely, Councilman.
Mr. Perkins?
Yeah, just want to comment on the resolution for recognition of our Municipal Clerks Week, which was this week. So I'm glad that we were able to get this resolution on to recognize both our clerk, Ms. Lisa Lashway, our deputy clerk, Michelle Mazer, and our assistant to the municipal clerk, Susan Guavia, for their dedication and commitment. So congratulations, ladies.
When's Mayor's Week?
That was last
That was last week.
I was remiss, I didn't put it on.
Our next, we have a bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of various equipment by appropriating $125,000 and authorizing the issuance of $118,750 in bonds. Any discussion on that? Any old business? Any new business? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, hearing none, I close it to the public, and a motion to adjourn to the public meeting.
Motion, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Open public meeting statement.
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you, Lisa. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Labow? Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Mania?
Here. Okay, first on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings. Mr. Amianda.
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion to approve minutes of previous meetings.
Second.
Mr. Perkins, second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
I abstained from the April 8th, 2014 workshop. Yes on the others.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Okay, we have some correspondence. Actually, 40 pieces of correspondence. Any discussion? Okay. Next on the agenda is the ordinance for public hearing. An ordinance for first reading. Mr. Ferranti. The next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 13-2014, entitled Bond Ordinance of Providing for the Acquisition of Various Equipment in and by the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $125,000, therefore, and authorize the issuance of $118,750 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Mr. Franti?
Sure. I move that ordinance number 13-2014 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on May 20th, 2014 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Mr. Remian, the second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Next, we have, the number one resolution has been taken off. We have 8 resolutions of consent. Is there any that wish to be moved to non-consent? Hearing none, a motion for the consent resolutions. Mr. Roman, would you do that, please?
Make a motion to move for approval of the consent resolutions 2 through 9.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Public portion on the consent resolutions. No one out there. Close it to the public. Council comments. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Okay, next is consent motions. Mr. Perkins?
Yes, Mr. President, I move for adoption and passage of the bill list.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Any administrative reports? Mr. Gannon?
Got a bunch, I'll start. Do or Die Fun Run had over 1,000 participants. It was a great day. Bunch of upcoming Recreation Department events. Power Wheel Series beginning this Thursday, May 8th. Special thanks to 46 Chevrolet and DTA for being the presenting sponsors, and Dorsey and Semro for sponsoring 2 of the courses. The Farmers Market will start this Saturday, May 10th, 9 to 1 in the parking lot here at Town Hall. One of the most popular events that we put on, the Fairy and Pirates Festival, is Saturday, May 17th at Turkey Brook Park. And I urge you all to attend that event. The Cherokee Expo at Vassar Park is Saturday, May 17th at Vassar Park as well. I had the pleasure and the honor of attending the Valor Awards for the 200 Club a couple of weeks ago, and Mount Olive dominated those awards, I think taking over a third of the awards that were presented. It was really very humbling and very thrilling at the same time to be representing Mount Olive Township at those awards. Very, very pleased to announce that I was advised today that Marveland Farms contract between the current property owner and Toll Brothers has been finalized, and they are now in the process of finalizing the developer's agreement, and Marveland Farms, which is about 250 some odd units down in the Flanders area adjacent to the golf course, will be moving forward, which is going to be a huge tax benefit to the township, huge, beyond Siemens and beyond anything else that we've seen recently. I'm also very pleased to announce that it's my understanding that the Simoff property, which is behind the old Bud Lake Administration Building, has also been finalized in terms of contract, and we should see some development there, which is also going to be a huge boon to the township in terms of taxable growth. Did you have something, Alex, or?
Yeah. Do you know what's going to happen with the baseball field?
The last word that I had, because I had Sean reach out, is that they have no current suitors with respect to that property. So as we currently stand, that baseball field is not in play in terms of development growth. And we do have some contingency plans in terms of Turkey Brook in the event ultimately that the property does come into play. The last thing is obviously most of you have been up to Mount Playmore, which is in the works and should be completed relatively shortly. That's all I have. Anything for you, Sean?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Council President. Yeah, I have a few things. The Bud Lake ambulance, as we all know, that's been a GIF submittal and a mail submittal. I'm very happy to report that both the mail and GIF are going to cover almost the entire cost of replacement, including equipment. It's another reason, why it's a benefit that we belong to the Morris GIF. It's just excellent insurance. Our premiums are lower than we would be able to get out in the open market, and our coverages are greater. So, very happy to report. We expect those checks to be approved next week. Hopefully they'll be in soon. We'll be able to either look for a new bid, or we may even start exploring a national co-op, just to expedite the process as long as it's in accord with New Jersey local public's contract law. Carson Drive update. Council will recall that we talked about this last fall, and the target date was for May. Well, we're at May now. As soon as we're done with the Playmore efforts this week, we have, I'm very happy to report, Mr. Quinn has instituted every Monday DPW staff meetings, and that's been going on since January. They're very productive. It's been good for morale. We've been very much on the same page. So this is one of the topics on our agenda on Monday. Matter of fact, Mr. Maney has been in usually on Mondays, and it's pretty well-attended staff meeting, 30 minutes. As we talk about anything longer than 30 minutes, you're wasting your breath, but we're done within 30, and it focuses them all week. So this is a topic for this Monday. I anticipate our engineer reviewing the Carson Road speed bump locations probably next week, and with an eye towards, you're talking at that point, May 18th or right after Memorial Day, getting them in up at Carson Road. So that's, I know that's looked forward to by most of the residents. Yesterday I went down to Trenton with the engineer as well as Mike Lotta for DEP firm capacity issues. Again, council hopefully will recall last summer into fall we had some severe firm capacity issues, mostly resulting because and it's not just local to Mount Olive. Water infrastructure throughout New Jersey, the average is about a 20% water loss. Well, we were averaging above that, and it raised the attention of the DEP. They were very concerned, especially in light of the Marvel Inn development and Siemens development, that we were exceeding firm capacity. We weren't. We put in a lot of proactive measures, including software, asset management program. We've gotten in touch with RCAP, the Rural Community Asset Protection Plan for community water systems. And I'm very happy to say that the 6 to 8 million gallons that we were losing per month has so far been recaptured. We're back to where we should be. So DEP is very happy. They took us off double secret probation yesterday, and we seem to be moving on. Last but not least, there was a resident in here last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, in the Johnson Ave area, and it has to do with the Grabowski buildings, the 2 brown buildings across from Bud Lake at the corner of Johnson Ave and Route 46. Again, we've been waiting for 2 years on that to try to get Highlands to say okay and wait for the Highlands redevelopment. We didn't want to lose those buildings and lose the impervious coverage and never see a building go there again. Again, it's a loss of taxable ratables, but it becomes in the aggregate, it hurts all the residents. We've been in touch with that resident. They have made a commitment to get the permits, to knock them down within 45 days. They're on notice. We have the new ordinance in place, and we have room in the budget that if they don't comply within 45, we will take them down. We will not lose the pervious surface problems, and we'll get rid of an eyesore along 46. That's all I have.
Sean,
Mr. Roman?
what's going, are we doing anything to clean up the property on the corner of 46 and Shea and Shore? You know, when the building got torn down?
Yeah, that property owner's been sent a letter already. If they don't comply within 14 days, then, you know, we'll enact our ordinance, do the lien, and at our own expense, but we'll recoup those damages. He's worked with us in the past, sometimes a little slower than I want to see, but yeah, we have to clean up that rubble, and just like that resident had pointed out, it's still there and it's still an eyesore.
And then the only other property is the one off of, right next to Route 46, that abandoned barn across from, I think that's Harrison.
Harris Lane, 3 Harris Lane, yes.
Yeah.
That's the adjacent property there. They have been on notice. It's part of a broader problem than just not that barn. The details, I can look it up in iWorks. I know Mr. Van Ness has been back and forth. I think he's on some type of rehabilitation plan, including that barn. I can't give you the details beyond that right now, but I'll email you subsequent to this meeting.
I just want to make sure it's on our radar, because at one point this past weekend I was driving by and I saw some kids, not necessarily going in the barn, but they were pretty darn close, and
It's an attractive nuisance.
I know for one, if I was in that age bracket, I'd have made my way in.
Okay. I'll email council with an update probably tomorrow or the day after.
Thank you.
Cool.
Oh, really?
Just a quick comment, our property maintenance ordinance that we passed, it really works, because I have a house that was abandoned across the street from me. The leaves had piled up all year long. The grass was never cut. Every time I cleaned my leaves, they blew over from across the street. I informed the administration, I informed Sean, got right on it, called the bank. They sent somebody to bank. The guy cleaned a little circle in the center of the lawn and left all the other leaves there and took a picture of it.
Of the
cleaned
circle.
part. Probably sent it to the bank and hopefully got paid for it. He hoped that he got paid for it. Unfortunately, I took pictures too of the leaves that were still there. Showed them to Sean, and Sean had the town go in, clean the leaves, and send the bank a bill. So it really works.
Bill the
Thank you,
bank.
Sean.
Bill the bank.
Go.
That's what I like. Bill in the bank.
Don't build my, raise my fees.
Any old business? New business? Legal matters?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one item tonight. In the last week or so, new COA regulations came down. Chuck McGarty is currently reviewing them to ascertain what the impact is for Mount Olive. Our office plans on conferring with Chuck, and we can advise council as to any significant developments.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
If I may interject on, while bringing up COA, what's the status with the cobblestone property?
I will check with Tracy Wang from my office who's handling that.
There's not, so no, basically nothing really new's happened?
Not that I've heard.
They did some water testing to see if the property could sustain the type of project that we're looking to put in there. That was most recently.
Okay.
And we haven't gotten the results back as far as I know. There were some complaints from adjoining property owners that they were not notified that we had gone in, because we had talked about
Okay.
the fact that we would notify people, but we weren't really doing anything on the site.
Right.
My understanding is that the work actually disturbed the rodent population, which has become a problem on the site, which is another reason why the project, from my perspective, is appropriate at that site, because the property is not being properly maintained. I was able to speak to the property owner and certainly did come to an understanding that anytime we're going to be on site, we would let that particular property owner know whether we're doing anything of a disturbance nature or not. And certainly anything that we're going to do to disturb the property, we're going to let the general population surrounding the cobblestone property know that we're on site doing whatever it is. But I expect to have the water results back shortly to find out whether or not there is sufficient capacity on the property.
Yeah, if you got a rodent problem, just tell TNR about it.
Sean, you had,
No, the mayor answered it better than I could.
Jeff, I have a legal question.
Sure.
If a developer's been given an approval, and when he got his approval, the COA obligation was whatever it was, has that been reduced now?
The co-obligation from
Yeah,
when.
for the developers. It has been reduced, right?
I believe so. I can double check that. and
Right.
ask council. Yep.
And if that's the case, that it has been reduced, when he got his approval, he still has to abide by the old regulation for COA? That's my legal
Sure.
question.
I can look into that as well.
I would imagine the answer is yes, without knowing the actual answer.
I figured
When
the
you
answer
get
was
your
yes, but I
approval-
wanted to,
When you get your approval, you're subject to
Right.
the resolution, which is adopted.
what I'm alluding to is the Simoff property. Okay?
Yeah.
Council reports. Board of Education, Mr. Abienda.
Yes, Mr. President. The Board of Education met on April 28, 2014 at Mount Olive Middle School. The board took the following actions. One, the board recognized Mount Olive Lions Club for their community service. Number 2, the board recognized middle school science and technology team. Number 3, the board held 2013 to 2014 Winter Sports Award ceremony. Number 4, the board approved the retirement of Mrs. Gail Dux, principal of Chester M. Stevens School, effective August 1, 2014, after 13 years of service to Mount Olive Township School District. Number 5, the board held public meeting on 2014 to 2015 school district budget. The board approved school budget in the amount of $86,835,565 to be submitted to New Jersey Department of Education for final approval. The budget will result in general fund tax levy of $60,863,620 and a debt service levy of $4,582,826. There will be no increase in property tax in 2014 to 2015 school year. Responding to a question from the floor, the board assured the staff and the public that no final decision had been made about outsource of cafeteria staff and food services. And that's the end of my report from the school.
Mr. Mayor?
It's somewhat of a controversial discussion topic at the Board of Education in terms of the outsourcing. Anytime that the Board of Education looks to outsource, whether it be janitorial, transportation, food services, we generally get a lot of feedback in my office from people who want us to take a position on what the Board of Education is doing or not doing. And I can tell you that my general position is that I don't get involved in school board issues. They're a lot more knowledgeable in terms of the reasons for or reasons against taking certain actions that involve the Board of Education. But I can tell you that I have had a lot of feedback on the last point that Daniel made on the outsourcing issue, and you may all hear about it at some point in time. But I would ask that you follow my line and say, look, the Board of Education is the one who's tasked with making those decisions and ultimately has much more information than we will ever have in terms of that decision-making process.
Thank you, Mayor. Environmental Committee, Lake Issues, and Library Board. Mr. Ferrante.
I have nothing for environmental. The Bud Lake Association is doing their spring cleanup on Saturday morning, May 17th from 9 to noon. And they'll be working the shoreline coast of Sand Shore to the beach. And nothing for the library.
Okay. Mr. Perkins, Safety Committee, MOTV.
Nothing to report, Mr. President.
Mr. Roman, Open Space and Recreation.
Open Space meets next week. On recreation, I just want to add that last night the Mount Olive High School varsity softball team beat Hanover Park 5-4 in extra innings, and I'd like to particularly congratulate one of my former players, Alyssa Mathura. She brought in the winning run in 11 innings.
Ooh.
Wow.
So,
Was that part of the Morris County tournament, or was
no,
it
it's just the regular softball
how's the
season.
team doing this year?
Not as well as we'd like, but definitely they're progressing as the season goes on. And that's all I have.
Board of Health and Legislative Committee, Mr. Nacastro.
Board of Health will be meeting, I believe, next week. Legislative Committee, I had a meeting scheduled that was rescheduled, but I was at, along with you, Mr. Mania, we were at the American for Prosperity's luncheon on Friday, which honored Assemblywoman McHose and Assemblyman Parker Space and Senator Oroho. And they were given awards for basically they're the top three, basically, I believe, in voting down tax increases. Conservative.
Very conservative.
In the 90s percentage. It's amazing when you look at the numbers in there, but they're doing a great job. And that's all I have.
Planning Board, Mr. Mania. Both Alex and I attended the last meeting, and there was talk about boardwalks along the lake, which I was quite happy about, because if any of you remember Frank Ruggiero, our former mayor, that was his vision, to have boardwalks around the lake. So it was an interesting meeting, and we also have, I have a meeting this coming Thursday for Planning Board. Public portion, anyone from the public wish to be heard? Mr. Latta, please step up to mic. State your name and address for the record.
Walter Lotta, 34 Bud Lake Heights Road. I have a few concerns that I'd like to bring to the council's attention. One is about this past winter. I realized we had a lot of snow, storm after storm. But I feel that the roads weren't that well kept up. I had brought it to the administrator's attention about a few roads that were not widened or intersections that were widened, and he said that he was going to send someone out to check it. And I went through there the following day, and it was never touched again. And I take care of Sand Shore Road to number 38 Bud Lake Heights Road as far as plowing. And you can get 2 cars through there. And the main reason why I do it is because we have some elderly people that live on my street in case an ambulance has to get there or a fire truck has to get there. The other concern I have is they're doing I guess a kids park up at Turkey Brook. And I understand that employees are getting paid overtime to complete this project within a 2-week time frame. And I was just wondering why the town can spend overtime money for that when there's catch basins that are falling apart, potholes, and they can't spend the overtime to take care of those problems. I had brought some of these concerns to the administrator, and he said they were on the list to get done, but I still don't understand why overtime is being paid to do that.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I just want to remind you that this is a public meeting and there will be a permanent record made of everything you're saying. I also understand, just hear me out, that there's a pending court matter between yourself and the business administrator, and I just want to caution council and advise council not to respond to any of your comments because of that.
Also, as far as the type of people that the town hires for positions that have to respond in a timely manner to emergencies like ice control, plowing, trees down, flooding, that nature. I find it hard to believe that the town can hire someone that lives over an hour away and expect them to respond in a timely manner. And that's on a good day. If it's snowing, it's going to take longer than an hour to get here. or if it's a storm. And also, in regards to the people that get hired for these positions, I had asked the administrator if they were going to be taking management courses, safety courses, as far as confined space, trench rescue. He said that they would be asked to take these classes in a certain time period after they're hired, which I haven't seen anything that anybody's going to any of these types of classes. Along with the employees, it bothers me that this person can bring charges up against another employee for discrimination when his vocabulary consists of the N-word, no disrespect to you. And also, if I could pass this around, because it's too disgusting to say out loud, that this individual refers to our children in this town. Can I bring it up so you can see it?
I feel that that's highly inappropriate, but it's public portion, so if you want to pass a note around.
You okay with it, Jeff?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Give it to the clerk.
When you read that, it could have been any one of your daughters.
Can we get an identification as to who he's referring to, Mr. Lawler's referring to?
I would prefer
Yeah,
that.
based on what I'm reading, there's no identification as to who wrote this or where it came from.
Who is it that you're referring to, made that comment?
Jay Summers.
Okay. We'll take a look at the issue.
The last thing that I would like to mention is last week, I had a very disturbing conversation with the administrator up in Turkey Brook. I had took a ride up there to see what they were doing, and I noticed that there was some safety procedures that were not being followed, which when the administrator took his position, I had spoken to him, and he told me that safety was one of his main priorities, which made me question if he came to the job site and saw that the employees were not wearing the proper safety equipment, he should have had said something. If not the administrator, then the foreman of the road department or anybody else that was there that was higher than the foreman should have mentioned. So when I saw this, I called the administrator's office, and Chrissy said, well, you can talk to the boss yourself. He's there. He's wearing a blue vest. So I said, okay. So I walked down to the area where they were working, and around the area is a snow fence. And I had asked a young lady that was there if the administrator was there, and she turned and said, yeah, there he is. And the administrator started walking toward me and asked me if I was there to volunteer. I said, no, I'm here to complain about something. And I had mentioned that the employees and the volunteers from the town, the residents, were not wearing safety hats when they were using front-end loader to lift 6x6 beams to put them in place that were over individuals' heads. he told me that when they were around the machine, piece of equipment, lifting these beams, that they would be wearing hard hats. I turned around and I said, well, it's over his head, and that employee is standing right there, and there's no hard hat. He said he would address the issue. And then all of a sudden, he lost it. Started yelling at me, telling me that I had to leave his work site. Well, first, I wasn't on his work site. I was on the other side of the snow fence. I had stated that. I said, this is a public park. I'm a resident, I'm a taxpayer, I could be here. Oh, no, you can't. I want you off my work site. I said, I'm not moving. And he said, I'll physically remove you. Then he walked around the fence, and I thought he was actually gonna physically touch me to remove me. And he come walking up, and he goes, come here, my friend. And I replied, we were friends at one time, but now I consider you a hostile employee. Hostile employee? I said, yes. And we walked up to the road, and he said, you can take as many pictures as you want. If you have a safety issue, call OSHA. And then he calls out to whoever was there, call the police. I'm like, what's he calling the police for? I'm not doing nothing. I just brought a safety issue up. He's the one that's blown his top, not me. He then said, I'll see you at a council meeting next week. So I said, okay. I walked to my truck. The police came. I don't know what they discussed because they were on the other side. I figured they would have to speak to me afterwards. They just came around the loop, passed me, and left. Then all of a sudden, you saw hard hats. It wasn't a big issue, then why all of a sudden everybody's wearing a hard hat? And I think it's pretty bad that an administrator would tell a resident to call OSHA on the town to turn them in for possible violations of safety and possibly get fined. I don't like the way I was talked to by the administrator. It was uncalled for to call the police because there was no violence. There was no cursing, threatening, or anything like that. I was up there simply to address a safety issue. When the administrator took his position, I had met with him and I told him about some concerns. He appreciated me coming in. I thought he was a very nice guy. He told me how he stood on things. I said, wow, maybe things are gonna get done finally. Well, I think I met with him maybe another 4 or 5 times, and then after that, I don't know what happened. He didn't want to meet with me no more. He says I waste his time. Every time that I went to him, I went with a legitimate concern, and most of the concerns he took action on. And it just bothered me the way he talked to me and treated me that day at Turkey Brook Park. Speaking to a resident like that. And saying that you should call OSHA if you have safety concerns. One other thing, as far as the administrator, my father-in-law owns a piece of property down in Flanders, 31 Hillary Drive. The town had to come in and replace the water shutoff in the driveway apron, and they damaged the curb. I asked if it could be replaced. I told them that if the town would pay for the material, I would replace the curb and not charge the town. I would just do it. Free labor. They just had to pay for the material. So I know that it got done right. Unfortunately, it wasn't done right by the now foreman of the road department. The engineer went down there and confirmed that it wasn't done right. The administrator did say that if it broke, that the town would come back and redo it, which to me is a waste of time and money. Why do things twice when if you do it the right way the first time, you don't have to go back? And when I had asked if I could do it, I was told that the town don't do that. But now it's okay for the town to ask for volunteers to help at this park. They're just supplying their labor and the town's supplying the material. So it's okay to do it now, but when I asked to do it, I was told that the town can't do it. I feel after living in this town for 53 years, working for the town for 18 years, that changes need to be made in the areas of the road department. I didn't like the way it was run when I worked there. I brought up safety issues and concerns, and it just got pushed to the side. That's why when I met with the administrator when he first took his position, and like I said, he seemed like he was the type of guy that would get things done. But now it's like, he basically told me any concerns I bring to his office, he's not gonna listen to them. So if I can't go to the administration with my concerns, I guess I have to come to the council to try and get things resolved. It's pretty bad that you can't work with your town administrator on issues. Never disrespectful to the man. I don't know what I did, but again, I just don't like the way he spoke to me and treated me that day. That's all.
Don't go away, Mr. Lott. There's two sides to every story. We've only heard one side. And I don't know if you want to let Sean on his behalf.
No, I've actually asked Sean not to respond to any of the comments, and I think that's the general
But again, I just wanted to make that
direction
statement.
from council.
We only heard one side of the story. And, Mr. Latta, let me ask you a question. When you worked for the town, did you resign or were you terminated?
I quit. They
You
offered me,
resigned?
they
Okay.
offered me a position that I didn't want to accept, and I quit.
John, the bottom line is that I've heard everything that Mr. Latta has to say. I'm considering all of the positions that he set forth on the record here today, and I will address them with Sean as appropriate.
Just a quick comment I have to make. I've interacted with our business administrator many, many times, and I've never had a problem. Everything that I've addressed with him, he's done diligently in a timely manner. Just a comment that I wanted to make.
So, in the future, can I come and pay a visit to you and tell you my concerns so you could tell them?
Be my guest. You want to speak to me? I don't have a problem.
Okay.
You're a
My
citizen.
grandfather never had a problem speaking to you.
You're a citizen of Mount Olive, and I'm an elected official, and I need to listen to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That it?
That's it. Anybody else from the public wish to be heard? Mr. Weiss, no?
I'm good tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Council comments. Mr. Amianda.
No.
Mr. Ferranti.
None tonight.
Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that last weekend and the weekend before, we were out in force with the Knights of Columbus for our citizens with intellectual disabilities fundraiser, as well as the Lions Club White Cane event. I was lucky enough to be stationed at Sam's Club, which has an overhang on it, which worked out really well this year. I'm always thankful for the people, regardless of how much money they put into the bucket to help the less fortunate than ourselves. This had a little, and it's just a small story, and it happened on this past Saturday when I was up at the Sam's Club. I had the 1 to 3 p.m. shift, and a young gentleman came out, and of course I had my Marine Corps shirt on, and he walked up and he was looking through his billfold, and he said, "I don't have any small bills." And I said to him, I said, "Well, that's okay, we accept 20s. And he kind of laughed and he said, "Oh, you were in the Marines?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, so was I." And I said, "Of course, Semper Fi, where were you?" He said, "In Kuwait." And I said, "Great." And I told him, he asked me, I said, "Vietnam." He said, "Well, his dad was in Vietnam." So we got to talking for about 2 or 3 minutes. The young man pulled a $20 bill out and threw it into the bucket. So it touches me that people reach deep down into their hearts to help those that really need it. And it's always a sense of pride for me to be out there. And it's a 2-hour stint, and I love doing it every year. And I just thought it was important that the Township Council, as well as the Mayor and administration, know that there are people out there, not just because he was a Marine. I'm sure if he was in the Navy, well, maybe not in the Navy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Roman.
I have nothing.
Mr. DeCastro.
Nothing.
I too was out there collecting on Saturday, and I don't know if it would be proper to mention a business that I was standing in front of that chased me, told me I couldn't be there. I'm not sure it would be proper to.
Probably not a good idea.
I won't mention the business, but I went over to Adams, and within an hour's time, I collected over $100. So, and he welcomed me with open arms, gave me a coffee and a bagel, and I went outside and collected $100.
You have to understand that certain businesses get complaints from people as people start, it's, you know what, while we look at it as a good thing, there are other people who feel that they're bothered by people collecting money. And so certain businesses, for business purposes, those that allow us and the volunteers to stand there in front, God bless them. And those who don't, they have their reasons too. And hopefully, they give in different ways at the time, so it's probably better.
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a happy camper.
I understand.
And I just
but-
said to the individual, I know a lot of people.
Oh,
You
Yes.
did the wrong thing just now. I'll
But-
leave it
but-
at that.
But by the same token, that business may give back to the township and to organizations in a different way, other than through candy.
Okay,
That's what I
no
think.
further comments?
You had to put that in those financial disclosures
Pardon?
there.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.